Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and you're listening to the voice of the people. Let's get ready for Boxing Voice.
The Boxing Voice, bringing you the most relevant news and latest rumors in the sport of boxing from around the world, while delivering diverse opinions and thought-provoking insights from a revolving cast of panelists. The most relevant guests in boxing, answering hard-hitting questions and touching on the topics that interest you the most. Correspondents from all over the globe, giving us the inside track on what's happening from fight town to fight town, and access to the inner workings of events allows you, the listener, a chance to get inside the fight. From continent to continent, coast to coast, we give you, the caller, a consistent outlet to voice your opinions on topics relevant to you by subscribing to iTunes, creating a tight-knit community by connecting the Sweet Science's most enthusiastic fans. Now, Nestor Gibbs.
All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a very special and late edition of ThaBoxingvoice.com. It is now 1:31 a.m. in the morning, East Coast time, and we're here to bring you guys some good old-fashioned boxing talk with a twist. And for all you new listeners that are going to stumble across this episode based on the title and the content, just know that you're about to get the best damn boxing movie review you could ever get, because those other guys, they just know movies. See, we know movies and boxing over here. But without further ado, let me introduce the Robin to my Batman, or the Joker to my Batman, right? Because that will put us on the same level, but definitely on different sides of the fence where we normally are. But staying up late with me, the one and only from Corpus Christi.
It's me, Mario.
Hard work, dedication is why we're up so late. Hard work because we're up late. Dedication because it don't matter. If it's boxing, we're bringing it to you. The Creed movie, we got to bring it to you. And I'm going to explain why we didn't bring you any of the other boxing movies a little later. But this was definitely deserving of a review for the Boxing Voice. And like Ness said, I just want to reiterate, this is what you're going to get different. I'm not going to pretend to be, a film expert. I did not go to college and study. My major was not cinema or anything like that. But I know a little bit about movies. I know a lot about boxing. So that's why this is going to be a different review than the rest, but better.
Definitely. But let's not waste any time here as I adjust this microphone. And let's get into it. First of all, before we give you fine, ladies and gentlemen, the synopsis to this movie, I just want to say that I've always been emotionally tied to these Rocky movies. I mean, I believe the first one that aired was Rocky Balboa, and that was in 1976, if I am correct. That was the first Rocky Balboa, a small-time boxer, which is, something back then kind of considered a club fighter, and he got a shot versus back then the heavyweight champion of the world, Apollo Creed. And, that good fight, because he didn't win the fight versus Apollo, but it was enough to make Rocky Balboa a hometown legend, Mario. And, Creed is kind of, not kind of, but it's a spinoff. I mean, I don't know if you want to call this the seventh part in the Rocky series, or do you call this Creed 1? I will say that the movie was so good that it can stand alone as Creed 1, as Rocky 7. It really doesn't matter, and we'll get into that later on. But just so that you stick around now, I'm going to go ahead and say and start controversy. Yeah, I think this is better than all the Rockies. I mean, I think this is the best version of Rocky Balboa, period, because even Rocky Balboa was amazing in this movie. I mean, Sylvester Stallone played, you know, for me, it was like Superman. The father becomes the son and the son becomes the father, because Sylvester Stallone eventually was jumping into the role of Mickey, and Michael B. Jordan into the role of Rocky. And it was just
Very well said.
it was just so, I guess,
Poetic, nostalgic.
I don't know. Nostalgic, I guess, because they paid so much homage. Credit to obviously the director and the writer Ryan Coogler,
Cooler.
who also did Fruitville Station, which is one of the movies that made me a fan of Michael B. Jordan, who actually plays the lead role in this movie, which is Adonis Johnson. And before we give you more information, I'm going to pass the ball to Mario so he can give you the synopsis of this movie, because I'm sure you're already lost. Look, Adonis Johnson, but the movie's name is Creed, and I mean, it's Apollo. What's going on? We'll tell you right now. Mario, tell these people.
So I'll start off by saying Creed, by the way, made $42.6 million in its opening weekend. And as Ness alluded to, the director Ryan Coogler, who's done such films as Fruitville Station, which was an amazing, amazing film about a tragic police shooting in Oakland. So the plot of the movie, Creed, which, as Ness said, could be on its own as Creed 1, or you could call it Rocky 7. It is, in my opinion, a spinoff, and we'll get into why I believe that later. But so Adonis Johnson is the son of the famous boxing champion Apollo Creed, who you'll remember from parts 1 and 2 and 4. He was the antagonist in the film Rocky. He was the pound for pound champion. He was essentially, Frazier and Ali all rolled into one. And Rocky, this guy who gets a shot at him, who's, just a big underdog, and, he upsets the world, as Ness alluded to. So Apollo Johnson is the son of Apollo Creed, who died in a boxing match in Rocky 4, which was released in 1985. Adonis wasn't born until after his father's death and wants to follow his father's footsteps in boxing. He seeks a mentor who is former heavyweight boxing champion and former friend of Apollo Creed, the retired Rocky Balboa. Rocky eventually agrees to mentor Adonis. With Rocky's help, they hope to get a title to face even deadlier opponents than his father. But whether he is a true fighter remains to be seen. And that is the plot synopsis from IMDb. And it hits it all in one point. The Johnson aspect of it versus the Creed aspect of it. Adonis Johnson is the name of Michael B. Johnson in the film. So Adonis's father is Apollo Creed. His mother is someone that Apollo had an affair with. So they keep it under wraps, and they really do a really good job of kind of bringing it home a little bit in terms of the way that plays out in today's era of sports. They don't want to cause, embarrassment to the family. They don't want to ruin Apollo's legacy because he is dead after all at this point. And so the mother, whose last name is Johnson, is killed, and Adonis goes into the foster care system. He's eventually in institutional placement, and the wife of Apollo from the films ends up kind of adopting Adonis, brings him to his home.
Hold on a minute there.
Go ahead.
Because we can't just say the wife and not say who it is. What is her name? Oh my God, we should have had this ready, huh? And I should have had it ready before I said hold it. But it's the wife from the Huxtables. That's the bottom line. I mean, everybody knows the Bill Cosby's wife in the Huxtables. That's who the mom is.
It's a Felicia Rashad, who is the wife from the Huxtables. You all remember her from that. She does a really good job in this film. She plays a smaller part. She's not really seen after the beginning until the end. And so that's basically the synopsis. So he goes by Johnson because he wants to make it on his own. he doesn't want the name Creed to he doesn't want to
Mario's
depend
doing
on
a
that
horrible
name.
job here.
No, that's what it is. He wants to do it on
Hey,
his own.
And this guy just came out of the movie theater like a day ago. All right, listen. His name is Adonis Johnson because he is the illegitimate son of Apollo Creed.
But he doesn't use Creed's name. Why?
He does not use Creed's name because he didn't even know he was a Creed until in a youth correctional facility, he was visited by Apollo's then widow. What was her name? Felicia Rashad, right?
Felicia Rashad.
Marianne Creed.
In the movie, Marianne Creed
came to visit Adonis Johnson at the youth correctional facility. And, she started to talk to him and, basically was like, you have a father. And, his name was Apollo Creed. And she was like, how would you feel if I invite you to live with me? And, it was the scene. It was the scene. I mean, this director, Ryan Coogler, he was amazing at capturing emotion, because in that scene, Adonis had his fist balled up. You can sense the anger. I mean, we're talking about a kid. He was younger than 12 years old in this scene, in and out of different foster care. I mean, when she came into the cell, he immediately thought she was another social worker, and he shunned her away right away. He was like, oh, what are you, another social worker? You know what I mean? So it's this kid, it's the story that we all know, the inner city story, So obviously, right away, I connected. This movie was very emotional, and he did a fantastic job of portraying those emotions on camera. I mean, these actors did an amazing job. Michael B. Jordan, Sylvester Stallone, these two worked together like Batman and Robin, and I really liked it. But you want to start going, I guess, scene by scene?
And we can definitely do it like that. I do want to mention, for those of you that are unfamiliar with Michael B. Jordan, he appeared in The Wire. He actually was in Hardball with Keanu Reeves as a very young child. And then Fruitvale Station, as we mentioned earlier, is probably, in my opinion, his best work to date. And of course, everybody knows Sylvester Stallone from the Rocky movies, as well as Rambo.
You're totally not a fan of Michael B. Jordan. How can you not mention How can you go through his resume and not mention Chronicles? That was like one of the.
Oh yeah, Chronicles. Yeah. No, definitely. And so I do want to mention before we start that his co-partner in all of this was a young actress by the name of Tessa Thompson, who played Bianca in the movie.
Partner, but love interest.
Love interest. I'm sorry, love interest. And she was in Selma and Dear White People. Man, she did such an amazing job in this film. It took this movie to a new level, but of course we'll get into that.
Let me just say this right off the bat. I mean, obviously there's going to be a bunch of moviegoers that stumble across this that don't know us from the boxing world, but I like women, and this is a beautiful girl. But I don't know whose idea was it to give her the poetic justice Jada Pinkett braids, or whoever that was, Janet Jackson, whoever was in poetic justice and had those ridiculous weave. Why'd they do this to her? I don't know. You go to her IMDb. She has beautiful hair throughout her IMDb. Why they give her these weird dreads in this movie? I don't know. But she was a good character. I want to say and point out before we forget that she drew us in. She made us interested in her. I think, for me anyway, the minute I noticed that she was, she needed a hearing aid, that she was hearing impaired.
Yeah, I want to get to that, definitely. I definitely want to get to that. But let's start where you finished off. Ness mentioned the opening scene of the movie. By the way, everything he described was before the credits come in. In my opinion, it's one of the best opening scenes of the year. It just got you. It captured you. And it separated itself from the other Rockies. It was no longer at that point. Like, this was another movie. This didn't need anything or anyone you know, it was a really powerful moment. It was one of the most powerful opening scenes of any film I've seen this year. And I've seen a lot, although I know award season is coming up, and so some of the best are yet to be seen. So that brings us to present day. And you fast forward, I believe it was maybe 12 years, right? If I'm not mistaken. He's already in his early 20s.
Well, wait a minute. We're doing a poor job here. We're doing a poor job because when he was in the correctional facility, they made it clear to the viewer, myself and everyone else that watched this movie, that we had to understand that Adonis Johnson was a product of his environment and of the system, and that he had a temper and he could not control it. And while already in detention, he would go back and forth to lockup because he was always fighting. And then we get the scene with Miss Rashad, which is Miss Creed,
Miss Huxtable.
Miss Huxtable coming to visit him in his detention cell. I just wanted to say that because we have to, you have to establish like where this guy's a fighter. It's not only hereditary.
That's a good point.
Not only hereditary. He has a lot of frustration in him, and anger, resentment. Remember the fight itself was about a little kid saying something about his mother. So this is a broken child.
And I definitely wanted to touch on that as well, but I'm glad you mentioned it here because we fast forward to present day, and this is what I loved, the authenticity. See, when Ness says that in his opinion this was the best of all the installments, I disagree as a moviegoer. I think Rocky will always be, it's a classic American cinema. That's what it is. It's going to go down, in my opinion, as one of the best screenplays ever written, for an American film. But what I loved about this film as a boxing fan is the authenticity was way further up the landscape than any of the other previous Rockies. And here is one aspect of it. They bring you to present day, and Donnie Johnson, Adonis goes by Donnie. Donnie Johnson is in Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico, and he's competing in a boxing match. He knocks out his opponent in the first round, I believe, or first or second round. So we obviously see that he's competing in Mexico. It's in this like really run down spot that, Canelo had his first like 8 fights in, you know what I mean? And that's what you hear about Mexico all the time. There's so many professionals that come from Mexico who tell us and others that they've had 30 professional fights, but they're only 12-0. And that's because these fights in Mexico are often undocumented. They're often unsanctioned. And so, do they technically count? No, but in retrospect to their careers and what they learn, they do count. Even though they're bums, still, it doesn't matter. They're getting, competition. And, it's in lieu of having an amateur background, which Donnie does not have. Fast forward 12 hours later.
Well, they definitely made a lot of references to real-time boxing, to the real world boxing.
Big time.
So him going to Mexico to fluff up this 12-0 record,
yes,
or 15-0, I believe it was 12 or 15-0.
Good way to put it.
This is exactly something that we see. So it was
all the time.
All they did, and I'm really excited that Rocky Balboa has a realm. This is now the Rocky Balboa realm. Like, Creed is living in that era where his girlfriend, again, I know I'm fast forwarding, but I just want to.
Hey, come on.
Is that there's so many little things. Like,
it's
almost like a comic book now because, his girlfriend is like, hey, you didn't tell me Rocky Balboa is your uncle. Like, the world,
like the Marvel universe. It's like the Marvel universe. Yeah, absolutely right. And so you fast forward 12 hours later, and this is going back to what Ness said. The young Adonis in institutional placement was growing up rough. He was growing up with that chip on his shoulder. He was headed down a dark path. So when Marianne Creed comes and, rescues, quote unquote, rescues Adonis, she brings him up, and he lives in this big mansion that Apollo left her, and all the money from there.
Wait, not this big mansion, the actual mansion.
Yeah, It looked, yeah, and I see that's the thing is I tried to find out whether it was the same one because it looked identical, but I wasn't able to see for sure if it was the same one or not. But it looked exactly like the original from the earlier Rocky films. And so here's the thing:
a lot of homage in this movie.
They did, and so now he's at his job. 12 hours later, you know, he's kind of rubbing his hand. You know, he's got some bumps and bruises from the fight before, although they're only on his hand because he scored the knockout. And he resigns from this really corporate job. You know, he's wearing a tie and a nice shirt, and he resigns from this from his job to take up boxing full time, which is a huge step. And you hear it in his mannerisms and his dialect that he has evolved. He's changed past. You know, Marianne Creed has allowed Adonis to, you know, take that other side of the road. You know, he comes to this fork and the young Adonis is heading one way, and now he's sophisticated. You could tell he's educated. He's obviously has enough credentials to get this job, which we very moments later, we find out that he had just gotten a promotion and he resigns. He resigns to become a boxer. And this is the one part I wanted to talk about, Ness. He goes to Marianne Creed's house to tell him that he resigned, and he can't do it because she's so happy that he has this job. She's so happy that he didn't follow in Apollo's footsteps, and he can't tell her. So he goes to this big movie room, and did you notice that when he looks up YouTube, this is awesome. Everyone here, if you're a boxing fan, you've looked up YouTube fights. It happens. We all do it. From Max Kellerman to you know, Pete Pacman, who writes for the Boxing Voice. We all do it, right? We all go to YouTube and look up our famous fights. So he types in Apollo Rocky, and it pops up just like it would any other fight. But not only that, you see Bradley Pacquiao. Under that, it's Rocky Apollo 1, Sergio Martinez, Paul Williams. I think there's a Rafael Marquez fight at the top in the suggested views, and it shows previous fights that he had already been watching. Like, that was awesome to me, you know, incorporating those aspects, because this is what real fans do. We go to YouTube. We're sickos. Like, we don't get enough of the fights. You know, I never watch a fight just once. Very, very rare. Fury, Klitschko, I probably will only watch once. But, you know, I've probably watched, you know, the Charlo fight I even watched a couple times. And so, you know, we do that all the time. We do that, and as fight fans, it was awesome to see them incorporate that into the movie, you know. And it's just another little factor, from the Mexico thing to the YouTube, like just little factors that made this so authentic. And so we'll go to Ness. Ness, you got a clip to play?
Well, I want to play the clip that you were talking about when, you know, he has to tell Marianne Creed, his, you know, now I guess adopted stepmother or legal guardian.
Definitely play that.
Who's given him all these opportunities that he has, obviously.
Yes, absolutely.
So I want to go to that clip.
Where'd you get this? Mexico?
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. I ought to knock you out myself. You know how many times I had to carry your father up these stairs because he couldn't walk? Is that what you want? No, you want brain damage. Yeah, you do. You want to be so brain damaged you can't form a sentence.
I can get hurt doing anything.
Apollo didn't get hurt, he got killed. People get killed. I didn't take you in for you to go backwards. You're better than this.
I'm leaving soon.
Okay, so that scene right... Oh, my bad.
I'm going to be fighting full time now. So I want to tell you face to face.
You are your father's son. And you're part of him. But it doesn't mean you have to be him.
Strong words.
Very, very strong. And I want to set that up real quick. And Ness, I want to hear what you think about this. That clip that Ness played is actually a little bit ahead of where I was. No. Right before he goes to the Delphi Gym, right? We hadn't explained that yet. He goes to the Delphi Gym, which is one of the famous gyms in LA. And the owner of the gym turns Adonis Creed away, Adonis Johnson away, and says, I won't train you. You know, you grew up privileged. These guys are killers. They're fighters. They've had to fight for everything. You're not ready. So it's amazing. Adonis steps in the ring. He puts his car up for grabs, and he says, any fighter that can hit me wins my car. Knocks out the first guy. And then he says, who wants it? Who wants it? And y'all seen this scene in the credits. Andre Ward steps up. Andre Ward, who plays a fighter by the name of Danny Stuntman Wheeler, comes in, and you've all seen the scene where he knocks out Adonis. Adonis. And so that's the scene right there. He has that red eye messed up, and he had just come from that gym. And so that's when he tells his mother, Marianne Creed, that he wants to turn pro. Ness, what did you think about Andre Ward? What did you think about his cameo in here? And what did you think about that scene in general?
Well, first of all, I think that scene was a lot more glamorous than you depicted it. I think that when he came back from Mexico and he went to the Delphi Gym, he came back with this duffel bag. I'm not sure was it leather or not, but I know that he was dressed in black, and he definitely walked in the gym with a bit of swagger, kind of like, I did it. And he throws the bag down in front of Wood Harris is his name, correct? Wood Harris, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, is actually Avon, who is, remember, Stringer Bell's buddy in The Wire. So, I mean, I love the cast. This cast was excellent. So, in this movie, what's his name, Mario? Oh my God, I'm so
in this movie, his name is Tony Little Duke Burton.
Okay, so Tony tells him, Tony Little Duke Burton tells him, no, that doesn't mean nothing, because he basically told Adonis to get some experience. So Adonis goes to Mexico, get this 15-0, and now he throws this bag of money, Mexican money and American money, on Tony's toes. And he's telling him, like, look, I'm ready. Look what I did. And he's like, no, man, these guys are killers out here. And he's basically saying, like, you ain't no killer. You wasn't brought up that way. And I'm not going to train you. Your father died in the ring. And, again, it touched the chord to me. And it touched the chord. They paid homage to reality. Because, for me, we've seen things before. There's documentaries, that you've seen, that I've seen. But again, Pritchard Cologne, for me, brought it home. And Adonis is now living with that in this Rocky Balboa realm where his father was killed in the ring. And this is a sport that he now wants to take. And that's why that scene was so powerful, because now you have to tell the only mother that you knew, while she's not your biological mother, there's still some connection because she was the wife of your father that you never met. You have to tell her that you're going to take up this sport that killed your father. It was a moving scene for me.
It was a very, very moving scene. And so basically, without the help of anybody in LA, including, the gym owner of the Delphi Gym, as well as his own adopted mother of sorts, he moves to Philadelphia. He wants to rough it out. He wants to be a boxer, and he decides that he's going to leave the big mansion behind. He's already lost the car. Well, no. That's what he does. No. That's what he does. He's like, I'm going to rough it. Well, okay. He went from a mansion.
No, but
he
I'm
doesn't
just
have a job anymore. What are you talking about?
No, I understand, Mar, but what I'm saying is he had a good job. So he obviously put away a nest egg, because when he gets to Philly, he's looking pretty good. The guy's shining. I mean, he's running around jogging in Jordans.
And he's got fresh Nike gear. Well, look, you're jumping ahead, because I definitely have a bone to pick with that. I just wanted to mention that, listen, I know what that's like. And I'm going to say something personal here, that because this reflected with me. Ness was talking about the things that he saw that hit with him. I've been debating on moving to the East Coast for a while now. I want to pack my bags and leave. I'm not going to rough it by any means, but I'm not going to know anyone. You know, I'm, you know, obviously, you know, I'll know Ness and a bunch of you guys who've already reached out and stuff, but it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing for anyone, especially someone like me who's never really left Texas. So I understand what that takes, the commitment it takes to pack your bags from LA, Ness, to move to the East Coast in Philly. That's a huge step. That's a huge commitment. For him to do that, even if he has some money in the bank, you know, even if he's still got his J's and his nice gear, it's still roughing it, in my opinion. It's a scary move, and he does that.
It is, but I mean, again, this is the movies, and it's his destiny. He's only going back to his father's land, baby.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And from that moment where he moves into his new apartment, which is essentially a hole in the wall, a segment comes up. This is one of the best boxing parts of the movie. So he turns on his computer. And by the way, the one thing, we're dropping the ball all over the place. The one thing we forgot to mention, Adonis is a light heavyweight. He's somewhere around 180, 175 to 185, somewhere in the middle of that. Okay. And so he's watching on his computer 24/7 on HBO. And 24/7 on HBO is showing the 24/7 for a fight between a fighter by the name of Pretty Ricky Conlon, who is played by Tony Bellew. Everyone knows Tony Bellew. All the fight fans know Tony Bellew. And Tony Bellew, or Pretty Ricky Conlon, I'm sorry, is going to be fighting the man who knocked out Johnson earlier in the movie in Andre Ward's character, Danny Stuntman Wheeler. The 24/7 is awesome. You know, they used the real voice of the voiceover. What's his name? God, he's like my favorite guy voiceover in the world.
Lee Streisber?
Yes, yeah, Shiver, I think is how you pronounce it. I don't know. Anyway, they use his voice. You know, the same cinematography, the same. You know, just everything, the nuances of 24/7. Yes, it's awesome, and they're interviewing the two guys. The quick backstory for this.
Hold on a minute, and again for the for just moviegoers, Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman are actual boxing commentators.
Good catch.
In boxing, so they again paying homage to reality. They actually went and seek these guys out. They did this. They did a lot of this.
And so a real quick backstory that's going to be important for the rest of the film. Pretty Ricky Conlon, played by Tony Bellew, is fighting Andre Ward's character, and Ricky Conlon is actually going to prison in, I think, 7 or 8 months from that point. Very quick, almost like a Floyd Mayweather-esque type of scenario. Yeah, a little bit with Mikel Cotto, where he's going to jail. Now Conlon is scheduled to go to prison for much longer. And much more serious, but this was going to be his last fight before going to prison, and he was looking to make as much money as he possibly could. He was taking the only fighter left because apparently he had cleaned out the division, and stuntman Andre Ward, aka Andre Ward, was the only fighter left of the two. In the division, and so that was the job, bro. That was the truth, and so that brings us to my opinion, one of the most pivotal points of the movie. And I'm very interested because Ness had some awesome things to say about this aspect of the movie. So at this point, Donnie goes to, living in Philly, goes to Adrian's restaurant. Those of you that saw Balboa, which was essentially the 6th installment, the last one before this Creed movie, where, Rocky comes out of retirement at age 85 or something like that, and we see that Adrian's passed away and Rocky started a restaurant called Adrian's Restaurant. And so Donnie goes to Adrian's restaurant, owned and managed by Rocky, and Donnie sees a bunch of pictures of Rocky and Apollo fighting all over the wall. Rocky's got a lot of memorabilia. I've never been to the Jack Johnson restaurant or Sugar Ray's restaurant or any of those places, but essentially that it looks like pictures from those kinds of restaurants. And Donnie accurately points out a picture and says that's from the 11th round of the first fight, and Rocky's intrigued at that point. And there Donnie asks Rocky to manage him. At this point, he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know he's Creed's son. And I would like Ness to break this down a little bit because he had some very interesting things. You'll remember in the lead up to the movie, in some of the film that we saw before the movie came out, there's this part where he says, Donnie says, "I heard rumors of a third fight," which everybody remembers in, I think, Rocky 3. Apollo and Rocky at the very end of the movie have like a impromptu sparring match, and it's essentially the third fight in their trilogy. No money, no fans, no cameras. So anyway, Ness, take that scene away. You have a very interesting take on it.
Well, I'd first like to say that Adrian's restaurant is actually a living, breathing restaurant that you could go and visit in Philadelphia, and it's called Victor's Cafe, and it looks identical in the movie. And like Mario said, we first learned about this restaurant in the Rocky series movie, Rocky Balboa, which was essentially part 6. So actually, I can do better because this is actually the first time that Rocky Balboa meets Adonis Johnson, Apollo Creed's illegitimate son.
This was taken from the 10th round of the first fight, right?
Good call. How'd you know that?
I heard about a third fight between you and Apollo. Behind closed doors. That true?
How'd you hear about that?
Who won?
It's kind of a secret. What'd you say your name was?
Donnie.
Okay. Well, the girl said you wanted to talk about something?
Yeah, I want to talk to you about training me.
Training? I don't do that stuff no more. Sorry about that. Listen, it's getting kind of late, kid, so I'm going to close up.
How good was he?
Apollo? Yeah, he's great. He's a perfect fighter. Ain't nobody ever better.
So how'd you beat him?
Time beat him. Time, takes everybody out. It's undefeated. Anyway, I got to lock up.
So when Mickey died, he came and talked to you, right? Talked you out of quitting, took you to L.A., trained you, brought you back.
How do you know all this?
How do you think?
What are you, like a cousin?
He's my father.
So Ness, what did you think of that part of the film where they first meet and they talk about the third fight? I mean, this is really the first moment where it becomes the spinoff, where the ties, because up until this point, it's a very vague connection between the Rocky franchise. I think this is a pivotal scene because this ties in the franchise in a very unique and I think very smart way. But what was your take on it?
A very unique and real way. Just again for once again paying homage to the original series and having the first meet be at his restaurant. I just think it was a powerful scene, and it was a ballsy scene on the character of Adonis. Just in the manner in which he came, the tone of voice that he used, he knew what he wanted. And he knew the things to say to get Rocky Balboa's attention. And I love the way that the scene played out. I love that he knew all that information. And obviously, he learned that from Marianne because, again, he was born once Apollo Creed was already deceased. So, I just, again, this scene for me was pretty good. I don't know. You said I had some interesting things. I'm probably.
Well, I'm gonna set you up then. All right. So here's the question, because me and Ness actually debated this a while earlier. What I take from this scene, the tone of his voice, the mannerisms in which he approaches Rocky, is a determined person who wants to be a fighter. But in a way, I feel like this is almost the sense of Adonis, that he's been a privileged child, not his whole life, obviously, but for the better part of his life. This is a guy who's used to getting what he wants. He had a really nice car. He had a big house. To me, it comes off almost a little bit snotty and snobby. I think that, you know, again, this is a guy that's used to getting, if he wants the best piano teacher, he's going to get the best piano teacher. He goes to the best schools. You know, he's well educated.
Wait a minute. Why are
you don't take that from it at all?
Why are you assuming this stuff? Because they gave us none of that information in the movie.
You know, and I said if he wanted the best piano. I didn't say he played piano. I didn't say that he took math. I didn't. All I know is he's educated and he came from means, right? He came from means. He had butlers, he had maids, like he had all that stuff.
We don't know that. They didn't show.
We saw a maid. Yes, they did. They showed a maid in the film. Yes, they did.
Where?
They showed a maid at the in the scene that we just played with him and his mother. There's a maid in the background. There's at least a cleaning lady. And so we know he's had that. It comes off to me as privileged a little bit. I also think it comes off as determined. But you disagree. So what do you think? It's just his determination? You just said it yourself. He comes at Rocky, you know, determined, and he has this tone in his voice. It's arrogance is what I pick up on. He's arrogant.
I just think that he knew once he gave up the secret, he would get the help that he was desiring. That's all. His name.
Maybe you're right.
Listen, he's no different than Julio Cesar Chavez, all right? And I wanted to make that clear because they're
Junior?
Yes.
Oh my God, you just won my case. Junior's snooty. He's privileged.
Yeah, no. But I don't mean that in the sense of that. I mean in the movie, again, they again paid, you know, homage to realistic boxing, and you know,
very much.
Again, I'm fast forwarding, but it's just to, you know, make the point that Adonis is given a very big opportunity because of his last name.
Yeah, definitely. And so, you know, moving on, you know, we're gonna beg to differ from that. Rocky turns him down initially, doesn't want to train Adonis. He you know, turns him down, but at the end of the day, obviously that's going to change. But before it changes, Donnie goes to another gym operated by Pete Sporino, played by Richie Coaster. So Pete Sporiano owns Mickey's gym. Y'all will all remember Mickey from Rocky 1, 2, and 3. He passes away in Rocky 3. And he was Rocky's trainer, manager, life coach. I mean, he was essentially a father figure to Rocky. He's a very powerful character. I think it was Rolling Stones or Time Magazine did the most powerful characters in American cinema, and Mickey ended up in the top 100 or somewhere around there, top 150. Very powerful character. So Pete owns the Mickey's gym. It's redone a little bit. There's new equipment. It's not the same, you know, crap hole that it was when Rocky 1 was going on in Rocky 2. And so Pete's running the gym. When Donnie comes, you know, he tells Pete that he's from LA, where he earns the nickname Hollywood. And Pete doesn't really want anything to do with Donnie. You know, he knows that his name is Adonis Johnson. You know, nowhere does he say he's Creed's son. And as I stated earlier, he goes out of his way to not use the name in his professional career. He wants somewhere to train. Rocky's not training him. So Pete just tells him, hey, look, you know, you pay your dues. And that was a real thing too, by the way. You know, it's $20 for dues. Pete tells him, I'll check in on you when I can. I've trained at gyms. That's essentially how it goes. You pay your dues, you train on your own. The trainer gets to you when he can. He focuses on his best fighters. And in this case, his best fighter is his son, Leo the Lion Sporino, played by none other than Gabriel Rosado. The same Gabriel Rosado that's fought Gennady Golovkin and, you know, Peter Kid Chocolate Quillen. You know, we all are familiar with Gabriel Rosado, those of us that watch boxing. And so Leo the Lion Sporino is 17-0. You know, obviously his son or his dad is the owner of the gym. And that's another thing they touched on that. See, I played baseball, and the one thing that I've learned about baseball and boxing and all other sports, they're not very different when it comes to father-son, you know, groups or you know what I mean? Like, there's always a favoritism there, and you can see it in the gym. You know, that's the golden child. That's his son. That's his ticket. Like he loves him, obviously, but at the same time, the politics are there. You know, no one else can get a shot. because the owner of the gym's son is a professional fighter. And so he's supposed to be Philly's, next guy coming up. And that was another thing that I liked, is the fact that Gabe Rosado's actually from Philadelphia, and so that was really, really cool. So essentially, Donnie starts training there. And at this point, a few scenes later, or I think the next scene, Rocky visits the cemetery, and we already knew that Adrian had passed away. We learned that in the film before, Balboa. And now we learn that the brother-in-law, Paulie, has passed away. You all remember the character Paulie from all the other Rockies. He's appeared in every single one of them. And he was Rocky's best friend. He was Adrian's brother. They're buried side by side. And Rocky visits their cemeteries. Their cemeteries. And, he pays homage and he's there. And he brings Paulie a little bottle of liquor, which everybody remembers Paulie was a bit of a drinker. So the tying of the franchise and Creed, the film, further deepened. This is a point because at this point, it's still a movie standing on its own. Creed, we were telling the story of Adonis, which has little to nothing to do with Adrian or Paulie or Rocky or any of the other characters we've grown to love. So that's an important aspect. Ness, what did you think up until this point? Gabe Rosado's performance in the film up to this point, the introduction of him, and just everything else to this point in the film.
I think you were spot on with your assessment of the way things are conducted in the gym and the politics involved, especially, a guy like Gabe Rosado, whose dad was basically in charge of the gym. But again, it was just more realism for us. It was a good scene, good camera work. I mean, the lighting was perfect. That gym seemed extra clean too, right? I mean, it didn't look as gritty as the gym that he's gonna later work in with Rocky, but this and Mickey's character is Burgess Mildreth. He is Rocky's original trainer, who, and like I said, father becomes the son because now Rocky takes on the role of Mickey in
Definitely.
this fight. And we kind of fast forward to that scene after the introduction of the new LA gym in which Donnie is training at. And by this point, he's putting in his miles on his own. He really doesn't know what to do. He doesn't have a routine at all. So what he does, and it's hilarious, he goes to see Rocky, and Rocky is at this point kind of doing like a shipment of produce and goods for the restaurant. And Adonis walks up and he starts to help with the freight and to get it down into the cellar. For all you New Yorkers, you know how it is. Everything's in through the basement, right on the curbside, with the big metal gates, and you got to swing them open. You got some steep steps, and hopefully you got a rack that you could roll boxes down. So they're unloading the Dodge white, construction van full of produce, and Adonis Johnson rolls up, and he calls Rocky Unc. So it's funny, man, because that's definitely my generation.
Yeah, he sees their family.
Well, I mean, yeah,
that's how he sees it.
Yeah, maybe it's because it's family, but listen, Michael B. Jordan is from Newark, New Jersey. It's where I'm from, born and raised. And in North, we call unks like old heads, That's why and another thing for you to know is, for you to know that's kind of that I'm right, is because he said, Uncle OG.
And he says like, Uncle or OG. I can call you either one. Yeah.
And he says OG. He's like, yeah, old ass gangster. So it's old head. Believe me, they call you Unc because you an old head already. You're old head. But it was just a funny scene. But What was even more funny was the fact that, you know, he asks Rocky, since you're not going to train me, you know, give me some tips, give me some things that I can do, some routines that I can do. And you know, Rocky's like, oh no, I already told you I don't want to do that. He's like, yeah, but you know, you ain't teaching me, you know, but you're not doing anything by giving me some routine. I mean, I don't know what to do. I've been teaching myself this far, you know, just give me something to do, some routine to follow. So, you know, Rocky gets some pen and paper out, and he sits down in the back of the van, and he starts writing, and he's saying, you know, do 5 rounds of jump rope and do, you know, 3
3
rounds of
rounds of
this,
speed bag. Yeah.
you know, and you know, he's telling them little things. So Adonis gets up and he grabs the paper and he takes a picture of it with his phone, and then he hands the paper back to Rocky. And he's like, all right, Unc, man, see you later. And he starts jogging across the street. And he's like, hey, but, you know, Rocky, that is he's like, hey, but don't you need this? He's like, no, I got it. He's like, what do you mean? But he's like, yeah, I took a picture of it. He was like, yeah, but what if you lose your phone? He's like, no, it's in the cloud. He's like, so Rocky looks up in the air and he's like, in the cloud? So it was just funny, man,
Yeah.
because
So what cloud?
yeah, you know.
Yeah, it was fun. It's very, very funny scene, and you're starting to bridge the gap between new and old. And that's the one thing. This plot has been done before. Everybody remembers Rocky 5, and you know, Tommy Machine Gun. You know, he was a protege of Rocky in that film. I thought they didn't do a very great job in that film of, you know, working the trainer aspect of it, you know, trainer and student. And in this one they did, you know, bridging the gap between their age differences and playing with it. So it was funny. Now, in this scene a little later, you know, as Ness said, he jogs off. We're going to catch you up real quick because we talked about Tessa Thompson, who plays Bianca, the opposite, the love interest of Adonis. So they meet the first time. It's the first night that Adonis is sleeping in his Philly apartment, and this loud music is blasting at like 2 or 3 a.m., right? So Adonis can't sleep. He goes downstairs to the apartment right below him, thinking, you know, banging on the door, thinking that a guy's going to answer, a bunch of guys going to answer, you know, partying or something. Ends up being a girl, Bianca. And he's like, hey, I can't hear it. You know, can you turn it down? I can't sleep. And so she's like, oh, okay, fine. You know, you got to work out in the morning, like seeing that he, you know, he has a muscle shirt on so she can tell that he's into fitness and stuff. And he even says that, hey, I got to work out early in the morning. So she slams the door on him. He goes upstairs. Moments later, boom, full blast. So fast forward, Donnie decides to apologize to Bianca by asking her out to eat. Bianca's a little hesitant. She eventually goes, and what else do they eat in Philly? She takes him to go eat Philly cheesesteak. Something that I'm hoping to have, you know, here in the coming months. And she decides to go out with him. Now, it's in this scene that she decides to go out with him. And before I tell you this part, a couple scenes before, in between them first meeting and the scene that I'm explaining, Adonis sees a poster with her picture on a wall outside a nightclub, and he's actually running and he sees it. So he's working out. He decides to go in the club, and she's singing. I think it's she's very talented. I think, I don't know if those were her vocals, but it's a really nice song, really good song, and you know, really solid vocals. So Bianca puts on a hearing aid before leaving the apartment, and Adonis sees that she has a hearing aid. Later, when they're eating these cheesesteaks, you know, they're talking, they're getting to know each other on a personal level, and Adonis asks her, hey, you know, what's with the hearing aid? And she tells him that she has progressive hearing loss. And she explains it in a way that leads us, the viewer, to understand that this progressive hearing loss is going to get worse. And essentially, she's not going to be able to sing at some point in her life. Her career will be cut short, but she has a great attitude about it. She is, you know, like, I'm going to enjoy it while I can. I'm going to make the most out of this ride. She's a very inspirational character to me. I it hits home, you know, with several family members that I have, and it's just really great to see somebody with that kind of attitude. And
well, let me interject here because this thing is gonna take forever. I can see that now. We're already in an hour in, and we haven't gotten through the first scenes. So I'm gonna just tell you this: I'm not happy that much about this poor young woman having bad hair in the movie and a hearing aid.
why?
I think that there's far too many people having bad luck in this movie. Okay. Uh, is that real life? Yeah. I'm going through shit. Mario's going through shit. And probably you're listening to this going through shit. But come on. How much shit do we got to go through in one movie? Because we've already had to endure Adonis losing his father, right? Then finding out that his father was the heavyweight. I mean, think about that for a second.
It's crazy.
You're this orphan bouncing in and out of foster care, fighting every guy in a detention center. Then someone comes and tells you that you are the son of Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson or Floyd Mayweather. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know, this is what Creed is, you know, so it's a lot to take in. And I think that was enough burden for the entire movie. But now we got to deal with her because they couldn't just be simple and just give her a hearing aid, you know? No, she's progressively losing her hearing. So like next year in the sequel, she probably's deaf, and that's corny, man. Like, I don't even understand that. So now he's got to get a new girl because like, because she's like, and they set it up. She's probably going to be fucking deaf in the next one because she's like, yeah, I learned sign language. And it's like, bullshit. Yeah, it was funny, though, that the only word that she learned was how to do bullshit, but it was dope how to do bullshit. But
I'll put it to you this way, okay? And the one point I will mention real quick, side note, a lot of her music, it's original music, and it's very heavy in the rhythmic tones, like the boom, 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 like not just bass, but you know, if you've ever known, you know, deaf people, or if you've ever had family members or friends, you know that a lot of them can listen to music through the vibrations of music itself. And to me, that was really cool that she's going out of her way to make music for deaf people in a sense. You know, I just thought it was a really awesome way that they kind of brought that full circle. But listen, Ness, you don't play boxing. And at the end of the day, you don't Disney up a boxing movie. The reason why boxing is the toughest sport in the world is because these men do the toughest thing in the world. Not only that, they come from very tough luck things, and that's the way it is for a lot of fighters. And I think it was authentic in so many ways. I mean, we could go down the list of fighters that have had issues. Look at Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, but Mario, you're missing the point. I understand what you're saying, but it's spilling over. Every character is starting to have an issue.
So if they made a movie about Floyd Mayweather, he's got an uncle with a disease, right? That's taking away his ability to even train. He has a father he's been in and out of jail, and he has a terrible relationship with who has a disease as well.
Deaf. His girlfriend isn't deaf.
Okay, but he's got Josie Harris, who is, you know, saying all these things about him.
Is what?
Who sent him to jail essentially?
Yeah, but why?
I mean, not her, but because he beat her, and so that's the thing.
God, we're going left field. Get back to
no. I'm just saying, even at the top of the level,
we have to fast forward here because Rocky decides to finally train Adonis, because Adonis essentially is training himself. So we fast forward to that scene. Rocky is going to come to the gym of Adonis. Now, there's an interesting thing here that you have to know.
By the way,
Mickey's old gym.
He says he hasn't been to in a long time.
Yes, it's Mickey's old gym. So they pay homage. It's called Mighty Mickey's Gym, and there's a nice big yellow and black sign on the wall, and in on the outside. And, you know, when Rocky comes up the steps, it's beautiful in there, you know? So right away, you know, Mario, what's the name of the trainer with your pronunciation? Speroni or something?
Speroni.
So, you know, yeah, the trainer
Pete
of
Speroni.
Pete Speroni runs up to Balboa, and they know each other. And obviously, you know, this is Rocky's gym, right? You know, this is the Mickey's gym. So, you know, he's like, hey, you know, look, and he's trying to introduce him to his son and talk about his son. And he kind of wants Rocky to back his son as, you know, he wants him to
Trainer,
get
motivator.
involved.
Yeah.
He wants him to be involved. But he's being very direct and clear in saying that he needs Rocky's name. He knows that Rocky's name is gonna put his son in different places and open doors that maybe wouldn't be open. So he's being very blunt. But it's a good scene, and I'm gonna just play this clip.
No, I don't even know what I'm doing here because I got other plans in my life and this wasn't part of it. Your father was special. Tell you the truth, I don't know if you're special. Only you're going to know that when the time is right. And it ain't going to come overnight. You're going to take a beat, you're going to take this, you're going to get knocked out, you're going to get up, and you're going to see if you got the right thing. But you got to work hard. I swear to God, if you're not going to do it, I'm out.
Like every punch I ever thrown has been on my own. Nobody showed me how to do this. I'm ready.
So, go ahead, my bad. Yeah, so, you know, that's a scene where he starts to, where they start to work together. And just like the old Rocky films, we get some training montages, right? Can't be a Rocky film without training montages. And essentially, fast forward, because we need to fast forward. Through jealousy, Pete Speroni, who, you know, like Ness said, wanted to work with his son, or wanted Rocky to work with his son, becomes a little jealous that Rocky, you know, is working with Donnie, and he offers a matchup. He says, hey, you know, my son needs to stay busy. You want to fight? You know, let's make a fight. And Rocky's in your corner, and my son's a big star, you know, a big draw in Philly. We'll make a little money. But in Pete's mind, he's thinking, yeah, this 0-0 kid with no professional record is going to get tore up by my 17-0 son, fed to the wolves. So Rocky's hesitant to take the fight, and Adonis eventually convinces him to, you know, take the fight. So they train for Gabe Rosado's character, the Lion. And at that point, it goes into a training camp, and Donnie moves in with Rocky.
Okay, so this scene was a lot more glamorous than Mario.
Well, you want to speed it up? We got to speed it up. I mean, I'm trying to get to this point.
I mean, you can say, I mean, they're in the ring. First of all, they're in the ring, Rocky and Speroni, and you know, he says, hey, Rock, man, you know, what do you think? You know, we put the two kids together, your name, this guy, you know, my son's a draw here in Philly, and we make a little money. He's like, yeah, no, you know, Adonis is not ready. Rocky, because you have to say that, because again, Rocky is being Mickey. And Mickey told Rocky to stay away from Mr. T. Okay?
Well, I said he was hesitant. I did say Rocky was hesitant to take the fight.
So Rocky didn't want to take the fight, and Adonis wanted it, and he convinced Rocky by saying, this is what I came here for. I came here to fight. You know, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. So that's how he decided to move in, because he's like, look, I'll move into your house right now so we could train. And they literally went back to that apartment building where his love interest also lives, and packed up, and then, you know, that's when I told you, when she comes out the window, she's like, well, you didn't tell me your uncle was Rocky Balboa.
Yeah. And a little side note, we mentioned the fact that Pretty Ricky Conlon, who's played by Tony Bellew, is going to fight Danny Stuntman Wheeler, played by Andre Ward. This fight ends up getting canceled because at the weigh-ins, the day before the fight, Tony Bellew Conlon punches Wheeler and breaks his jaw, and the fight is off.
It's ironic.
Breaks Andre Ward's jaw.
Hey, for our hardcore fans, isn't it ironic that Andre Ward gets his jaw broke and he can't fight? I mean, for all the listeners out there that don't know Andre Ward, this guy's not been able to fight for like forever, and finally had one fight with like Paul Smith. Then he was about to have to, be on one of the biggest stages of his
career. What happened?
And couldn't fight again. He had another injury. But listen, credit to Andre Ward. Check out the video on our YouTube. He had a great interview where he explains all that in great detail. And I feel for him because he mentioned it, like he knew that we were gonna talk smack. But Definitely. That was a funny scene, and again, very realistic.
Mm-hmm. And so the fight's canceled. Essentially Wheeler's going to sue the WBC and Conlon for breaking his jaw. But anyway, now we fast forward to the night of the fight between the Lion, played by Gabe Rosado, and Adonis. And
Adonis Hollywood Johnson.
And Pete Speroni comes to Rocky, and he finds out that Adonis Johnson is the illegitimate son of Apollo Creed. And he's essentially mad at Rocky. He's like, hey, man, why didn't you tell me? We could have made so much more money for this fight. We could have built this fight. And Rocky tells him, he explains it. Listen, the kid doesn't want to use the name. I don't want the press. We want to fly under the radar. He wants to do it his way. We don't want all this, hubbub about this. Can you keep this between us? Pete reluctantly says yes, and the fight goes on. There is this one funny scene right before the fight. The referee comes in to give Adonis and Rocky the rules, and as he's giving them the rules, Adonis just stops and he says, cut my gloves. And Rocky's like, what? You're about to fight. I can't cut your gloves. Just cut him. And Rocky's like, why? Cut him. I need to take a shit. I'm nervous. My stomach hurts. I need to take a shit. So Rocky's like, oh my God. So Bianca ends up leaving the room, and Rocky asks the ref to stall for 10 minutes. He cuts his gloves, and sure enough, Adonis runs into the bathroom and relieves himself. Very, very funny scene. So we get to the fight, and Adonis is having a lot of trouble. The pedigree of the Lion is starting to show. The 17-0 guy versus the 0-0 guy, and he's struggling. Ness, you want to take it from there in terms of the fight?
Well, essentially, he's not 0-0. I mean, they gave him credit for the Mexico fights.
Yeah, but you're jumping ahead with that. They think he's 0-0 at this point. So we'll leave it at that until we get to that point where they figure out, the 15-0 thing. But fast forward. So talk about the fight. What did you think in terms of Gabe Rosado's performance and the fight itself?
Well, I thought
Gabe looked realistic.
I thought Gabriel Rosado obviously did a good job. Credit to Michael B. Jordan, who played Adonis Johnson. He fit the role. He looked good in the ring next to Gabe Rosado. He looked big. He looked strong. Gabe looked good. Gabe acted very well. Under the lights. The scenes, I know that the first Rocky was great, but it was filmed in 1976. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. These scenes, these look real.
They're much more realistic.
They're hitting each other and it looks real, and I like it. I like it a lot. I just think this is a great movie. I think people need to get out there and go watch this movie immediately, because it's so much more than just a boxing movie too. It's so emotional. There's so many hidden gems throughout this movie that have to do with fatherhood and abandonment and bitterness,
the struggle to be better in life and follow what you want, follow your own compass, and do anything it takes to achieve your dream. That's what I took the most from this movie. But so he does end up beating Leo, the Lion, and of course the next day, what ends up happening? The word breaks out that Donnie is Apollo's son. It breaks everywhere. Bianca's upset because she didn't, Donnie didn't tell her the truth. Rocky's upset. Obviously Pete didn't keep his word. And all of a sudden, overnight, Adonis Johnson is now Little Creed, Creed Jr. Everyone knows him now. They have a scene with PTI, the PTI guys on ESPN, talk about Creed, and they bring up the fact that, is this an embarrassment for Creed's legacy? They talk about him having a little illegitimate son. It was very authentic to me, the way that it all breaks down. And, I could see the same thing happening. If we ever learn the same thing about a famous fighter, I could see it playing out almost exactly the same way. It was very authentic to me. So, news breaks out, and I'm going to jump to the main part of the movie. Ness, unless there's anything you want to go over real quick.
No, you could definitely go ahead.
Okay, so as we stated earlier, Conlon, played by Tony Bellew, his fight with Wheeler, played by Andre Ward, is called off. His jail time is imminent, and he's looking for one last fight before he goes to prison. His manager comes to Conlon, and he tells him, which it's his father, right? Ness?
You mean the
Conlon's manager? Yeah. No. I'm sorry. It's not. His name is Tommy Holiday, played by Graham McTarvish. And this is Conlon's manager. He comes to him and he says, listen, you need one last fight. We got Creed's son. He's in our weight division. We can fight him, and it'll be a huge fight in the UK. We'll bring all, they end up having it in a soccer stadium. He's trying to sell him, and Conlon doesn't want it. He's like, this kid doesn't deserve a fight. Who is he? No one cares about Apollo Creed. No one cares about Rocky. You're having me fight ghosts is essentially the way he puts it. And so he ends up convincing Conlon to take the fight. And now the manager has to convince Donnie and Rocky to take the fight as well. Calls Rocky, says, can we set up a meeting? They end up flying to the U.S. That's when he's pitching the fight to Rocky and Donnie, and he says, hey, we learned that you're not 1-0, you're 15-0, because he finds out about all the fights he had in Mexico. And that's when he tries to use the fact that he had all those fights. And we've seen this in boxing where guys, they get credit. Remember when the Olympians fought, Rasheed Warren, remember? He was fighting his debut on Showbox, and all of a sudden, he was, I forgot what it was, 6-0 or 8-0, because they counted his fights in the World Series of Boxing. And so we've seen this in the past where guys, need a jump start, so they give them credit for fights that they never got credit for originally. Everybody talks about Canelo being like 90-0 and stuff and having all these fights that no one counts. So that plays a part in it. I thought that was really big homage to boxing and the way it works. So Rocky playing the Mickey role, as Nessa said a bunch of times, which is, it's a big thing in my opinion. It's really, really full circle. And you see this Marvel universe that Ness alluded to, where Rocky, he's learning these lessons that he was taught. And it's just very, very solid. And so let's play a clip from this part.
Well, it's very biographical, if you know what I mean, because we're at the same age. And when I saw Burgess Meredith the first time, I saw Burgess, wonderful, but he's definitely up there. Here I am. And now I'm the same age as Burgess. What Rocky has afforded me that I think has been, and maybe never will be done again, is I've actually aged in a character throughout, and it's been the same performer throughout. And I literally have brought along what has happened to me in my private life, and I think it's showing. I'm totally different than what I was in Rocky One. Now he's worldly. He's kind of beaten up a little bit. He's figuring he's all alone. He has lost his love. He's lost this, and And I think about a lot of people that when they face that, when their mate passes on, what are they really going on for? What are they living for? And quite often, if you're lucky, they find some sense of accomplishment in helping others. That's why quite often they do charity work. Anything that takes them out of their doldrum. Well, Rocky wants to see Adrian so badly that he's fine. I'm ready to go. And then this kid presents this alternative. Maybe this.
Yeah, and that's a perfect clip to play to set up the final aspect of it all. And Ness, you want to give a little synopsis about it? Talk about the next aspect in the cancer.
Well, I wasn't I wasn't that happy that we find out that once Adonis and Rocky Balboa start training, they're doing a lot of work in the gym. He introduces them to a few other guys that are going to work the corner with him to help out with the pad work and stuff. And there's this one scene where Adonis is like, I'm here to work with you. And he's like, look, man, I'm old, there's certain things I can't do anymore. So, and even if I could, this guy still does it better. So, they establish a team, but as the days go by, Rocky starts feeling, I guess, sick, and then he faints, and he's rushed to the ER, and he's later diagnosed with a form of cancer. And it's a really depressing moment in the movie. It's a really low point in the movie, and this is what I'm saying. So now we're dealing with Adonis and everything that he is, as well as his girlfriend and everything that comes with her and her disability. And now we got to deal with Rocky having cancer.
Yeah, no, I
Like,
get it.
so now what happens in the sequel? Now he has to beat cancer or die? I mean, it's not fair. You can't kill Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, no, and I get it. I get it. It's a lot to take in throughout this movie. Again, I still think it goes back to the fact that it's paying homage to the sport and what fighters deal with. They have life and they have the most difficult sport to deal with. And so, anyway, Rocky's very reluctant to tell anyone about it, and he denies treatment. The doctor says, we caught it early. We can do this treatment. He's going to go through chemo and these things. And Rocky says no. Adrian died of the exact same type of disease. I think it was another form of cancer, I believe. And she was told that if she goes through these processes, she would survive. And she ended up not surviving. Rocky remembers that, and he doesn't want to do the same thing. So Adonis finds out, and Rocky tells him that he's not going to, go through the treatment, and that sends him into a downward spiral. Him and Rocky have a big falling out. Adonis ends up going to see Bianca perform at this big showcase at a very famous Philadelphia arena. I can't remember the name of it, but from what I read online, this is an actual place, where John Legend, I believe, and the Roots and a few others have gotten their break. So he goes to see Bianca. And at this point, as we said, everyone knows Apollo. I mean, everybody knows Adonis is Apollo's son. And, people seeing Adonis walk into this, place backstage to go see Bianca. And they're like, hey, little Creed, what's up, little Creed, blah, blah. So the headliner of the show ends up asking Adonis to take a picture. And they take a picture. So as he's walking off, he says, good luck, baby Creed, or something. And Adonis says, don't call me baby Creed. Don't call me that. They get into a big scuffle, and Adonis ends up waxing him, man. He gave him that fade and knocks the guy out. Adonis goes to jail. Rocky goes to try to rectify the situation. Adonis wants nothing to do with him. And at this point, Bianca doesn't want anything to do with him. She wants, to go their separate ways. Adonis is in training with Rocky at this point, not sure if he's even going to continue treatment. And it's a downward spiral. It is. But it is quickly rectified. There is this moment, which is, in my opinion, one of the biggest scenes in the film, where Adonis and Rocky are speaking to each other, and Adonis tells him, I have a fight. Cancer's your fight. And we've gotten so close. He thinks of him as family. He says, I fight, you fight. And it's a big moment because Rocky, at this point, his son has moved away. Adrian's passed so many years, the love of his life. The only connection, the blood relative to Adrian is Paulie. He's passed away. Mickey's long passed. He's lost everyone. He has no reason to fight. And so let's play a clip right now.
Well, we have the clip when Adonis finds out that Rocky has cancer because obviously Rocky kept it from him.
Everything I got is moved on, and I'm here. But you know what? It's okay. Because I said to myself, if I break, if I'm hurt, whatever, I ain't going to fix it. Why bother?
And I'm just some bum that's living in your crib, just nothing.
You're a good kid, a good fighter. But you got your whole future ahead of you. Mine? Back there, like all them guys on that wall. In the back. In the past.
So then we have, obviously, Adonis not taking this well, and the fact that Rocky refuses treatment for the cancer.
In the past.
I mean, what I look like? Letting you train me while you sit around and die. Just like any other fight.
This fight, I've seen it before. It gets as bad as it can get. And most of the time, you don't win it.
But I don't care. I ain't training if you don't get the treatment. So if I fight, you fight.
That was a real a good scene, man, because he motivated Balboa, and I watched an interview where Stallone said, that it was a pivotal point in the movie for his character because at that point, like Mario stated earlier, he had already lost everything, so he was already ready to check out. Adrian not being there, Paulie not being there, he was in another world. It's like the cloud thing. He didn't know what the cloud was. His generation had gone and passed, so he was looking to check out. But Adonis sparked that new life into him, man, and gave him hope.
Yeah, he did. He gave him hope. Rocky agrees to train, and this is the one aspect of the film that I had an issue with. I understand movies and how they work. I understand time sensitive, but Adonis is training for the biggest fight of his career. And Rocky is going through the initial process of chemo. And they play it out, they show it. But this 6-week camp, Rocky essentially goes through chemo, has a hard time with it, deals with all the complications associated with chemotherapy. And yet he, finds time to train him. He's even training him during chemotherapy at one point. He's shadow boxing in the hospital and he's doing like jump ropes, I think, and push-ups and stuff like that. And, it's kind of like a makeshift. Another point where Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And so, in terms of like the way he would train in his kitchen is pretty much what Adonis was doing. And so, they end up going forward and they get ready. And I just didn't like the way that they moved it on so fast. To me, it wasn't realistic. How are you going to train a fighter when you're going through chemotherapy and you're doing all these things? One aspect I do want to talk about briefly is one of the intangibles, part of the negotiations was that to sell the fight, Conlon's manager says that Donnie's going to have to go by Creed. He's not going to be able to go by Johnson. They need him to go by Creed. He says, hey, what if I refuse? And, his manager says it straight up. Then there's no fight. You know, this fight is based on his name. That's what they're trying to sell. You know, just like any other fight with any other, you know, fighter with a name that we've seen in the past. You know, if you're old, if you're young, it doesn't matter as long as you have that name and you can sell tickets. So they prepare for the fight. They move on to fight night. Ness, you want to take it over in terms of the fight and the things that you saw?
Well, you know, well, the way that the fight actually got made was interesting to me. You know, the contract. You know, the way that he flew over to see Rocky. He called him, and next thing you know, he's in Rocky's living room trying to make this fight happen and setting terms, like Mario said, and one of those conditions was that last name, and it was a tough decision for Creed to make. So I just want to play the clip because this was a moment when he was talking about it with Bianca, and you know, I guess why he was hesitant, and also the motivation that she provided for him to take on his birthright, because I'm sure Apollo would have given him his name had he not passed away.
So, what are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of taking on the name and losing. Call me a fraud. Fake Creed.
What you think about what's true? You love to fight, right? Yeah, it makes you happy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you are Apollo Creed's son, right?
Yes.
So then use the name. It's yours.
It's yours. I love the
Very
way she said
powerful.
that.
Very powerful.
I'm
And that's the
telling you,
thing.
man, this is a great cast. They
No,
did
it is.
a phenomenal job. I mean, both Creed, Michael B. Jordan, and Rocky, in my opinion, deserve to be. Rocky deserves lead. What is it? Supporting actor,
Supporting actor. Uh-huh.
and obviously Michael B. Jordan. You know,
Yeah.
for
You know, the dynamic that they created between Bianca and Adonis was something that stood out to me. You know, I'm at an age where I appreciate a woman's character and what she provides to a relationship a little bit more than looks these days. Bianca's bad. She's bad, man. She's so hot. I dig her. I dig her. I dig her.
the dreads.
I like her, you know, dreads, whatever, you know, they wouldn't have been my pick, but I liked her, man. I did. But that aspect of their character and the dynamic they played with each other, you know, she's trying to do something very difficult in becoming a renowned singer. He's trying to do something difficult in becoming a world-class boxer and athlete. They're trying to do two things that are two of the most difficult things to ever accomplish in the world that only a small percentage of people will ever understand or even come close to achieving. And they're there for each other. They're there to support each other. It meant so much to me that they both had these journeys and they were supportive of one another. And it wasn't just some thirsty girl. It wasn't just some, you know, boxing groupie. Like, this was a person who cared about the character in Johnson before she knew he was a Creed, you know, and that's how you know she's real. That's how you know she's authentic, is that none of that appealed to her. He appealed to her. And in fact, when it all started becoming too much, she stepped back. You know, she stepped back. It was the limelight that scared her off. And she was genuine. She was genuine. I you know, I hope I meet a girl like that one day. But so, you know, moving on, as we said, you know, Bianca and him were on the outs. Rocky has prepared him as best as he can. The fight does take place in Liverpool. They are in Liverpool at the weigh-in. I mean, I'm sorry, at the press conference. And the character of Conlon, of Tony Bellew, is trying to get under the skin of Donnie. And he's telling him everything that he thinks will spark, you know, emotions in him.
Well, he calls
said
him one thing, a
false creed. Calls him a false creed. And he tries the best he can. And Rocky, using all of the things that he learned from the Mr. T fight, you know, from the Russian fight, you know, all of these things he's learned, he's telling Donnie, don't get suckered in. Do not get suckered into this. This is what he wants. He wants you to get emotional. He wants to trap you.
I've been giving you time to ask the question as to why Tony Bellew is the main actor.
Go for it.
I know I'm asking you, like, why?
I believe Tony Bellew is the main actor because they've done everything. They had Mr. T, the hard-nosed fighter. They had Apollo Creed, who was the pound for pound type fighter, like a Mayweather or Ali type. They had the Russian. Now they have the UK guy. Ness, whether you agree or not, UK has stepped up their game. They have more champions than any other, country or whatever. They represent the toughest test in a way. I don't know if they do to casual fans, but in boxing, that's what they represent. So when the filmmakers, I believe, said, who can we make to be the antagonist? Who can be the powerful leader or the guy that he has to slay, the dragon? They said, we're going to the UK. It's something we've never done. It's authentic to boxing because some of the best fighters right now are out of the UK. It's UK's time to shine. With Tyson Fury coming up, Kell Brook, Amir Khan, one of the greatest in the world. Like, all of these guys are proving, how authentic and how great these fighters are. And that's one of the biggest dragons that you can slay at this point in boxing. I will say that Tony Bellew looked awful. Awful. Michael B. Jordan.
Body.
Look, Michael B. Jordan had this amazing physique. He was ripped and he had muscles and he just looked amazing. He looked awesome. You see this guy in real life and he looks like a lightweight. You see him in the movie and you believe he's a light heavyweight. He looked the part. Tony Bellew, he had a gut. He had almost no muscle definition, no striations. I mean, this guy should have at least taken this serious and had some sort of fight camp. Not that Tony Bellew is like the most athletic guy in boxing, but he looked awful. He looked awful. I know you have problems with it. I know you have problems with Tony Bellew. What is your gripe?
Well, I just didn't understand, with all the big names in this movie, why cast him as the, lead bad guy when you could have had Ward, who's more popular in the boxing world than Tony Bellew and obviously more accomplished. I didn't get that, but I think Bellew actually did a good job acting.
He did.
He played the bad role
very well, very well.
Exactly, he played it very well. He just had a very put-in body, but at the end of the day, so did Antonio Tarver when he did Rocky Balboa. I guess it's just hard for fighters to be in fighting shape for a movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Oftentimes, they have to do things that they're not uncomfortable with as far as acting and learning the trade, and so they're not able to dedicate as much time to the gym. So we get to the fight. And Bianca ends up showing up the night before the fight. They rekindle their relationship. The one issue I took with it is that, we didn't hear from the mom anymore. She didn't come to the fight. She didn't call him as far as we know. The only time she reached out to him was he's entering the locker room on the night of the fight. He's going to get ready, and there's a present sitting on the medical table. And he goes and he looks at the card and it's from his mom. And I can't remember the exact words, but it's somewhere along the lines of, follow your, dream or something like that. Something to stand out. Here's something to make your own. And he opens the package and it is Apollo Creed's trunks, the American flag trunks that we all remember from the original Rocky. It was really cool to see it. Obviously we expected it because we saw it in the trailers, but still, I thought it was really nice touch. The fact that he wore the trunks. So, getting into the fight itself, it was typical Rocky franchise fight. Here you have the underdog and he's going to get beat up, and he got beat up. Conlon just leveled him. He beat the shit out of him.
Dropped him a few times too.
Dropped him in the first round, I believe, right? And he just beat on him. he beat on him very, very badly. It looked like the fight was going to end early. I love the fact that HBO did the fight. They had Lampley and Kellerman, who were getting really good at acting out those kinds of fights. They used HBO. Michael Buffer was there. It had authenticity that we've seen. And the movie Southpaw, we saw a lot of that. And we've seen it in past movies too. HBO, for all the people that want to talk about PBC and them taking over and stuff, HBO is still boxing's network. And this proves it, that casual fans and anyone outside of the sport looks at HBO as the top dog. You know what I mean? They get those credits because they deserve it. And they've done the best with boxing, in my opinion. So the fight goes on, and in the second round, Adonis Creed. I knew I was going to do that at least once. Adonis Creed ends up landing a big overhand right, and it changes the dynamic of the fight a little bit. Tony Bellew's character is hurt. For the first time, he realizes, wow, this guy can punch. Ness, you want to talk a little bit about Adonis's style? I mean, he was more of a slick fighter, like his father. He didn't use the.
What I was intrigued with was that he had the moves down pack.
Big time.
That slow motion scene was the same Carl Weathers scene when Apollo Creed was like, moving his arms like that. You actually see it. So that they practiced it because you actually see it when he's watching the Rocky Balboa Apollo fight on YouTube way back in that scene Mario told you about. He does the same move. And, I mean, when Adonis does it, it just shows all the hard work that he put in. And Mario knows. Mario looked up his training regimen. He trained for over a year to get in shape for this fight. And, I mean, it shows in this scene because – he's kind of flexing and ripped, no body fat. And, this guy's an actor, but he's actually now continued to train with boxing because of the discipline. Awesome. And he loved it. And I watched a bunch of interviews after the movie, and he's still doing the boxing training. So, I think he had all the moves down. I think he did his homework. I mean, he's just a phenomenal actor, this guy. He did his homework. He had all the mannerisms down. And, funny thing is, for those that feel that the scenes were realistic, guess what? They were, because I didn't get the clip, but I did see it. And there was a scene where the director and Stallone and obviously Michael B. Jordan are all talking, and they're saying that they did the takes over and over and over, and then they finally go to Sly, and they're like, Sly, something is wrong. And he's like, well, he's got to take the shot. Everyone else takes the shot, so he's got to take the shot, and that was the problem. So Adonis eventually had to take those punches in the ring so that the movie looked better, but it did. The final scene was great, and paying homage again to the original, he did not win the way that Rocky did not win, because Creed in this movie is Rocky. Remember that I told you that. He's not the son of Apollo. Yes, he is, but his role is Rocky, the underdog. The guy to come up the hard way. That's who he is in this movie. It's just a phenomenal movie. I mean, obviously, I recommend all of you guys to go watch it.
I do as well. I will say that even though Jake Gyllenhaal, who started in Southpaw earlier this year, looked amazing, Michael B. Johnson did his thing. He looked great. My final thoughts on the film, as Ness said, the dramatics of the fight took place as the other Rocky did. He's losing the fight at times. He comes back and he's winning the fight. He gets knocked down really bad in the 11th round, and he's like out, Pacquiao out, like face first on the ground, and all of a sudden he's just, he flashes back.
It's that montage scene. It's that montage scene from Rocky when he, remember how he always, every time he used to go down, he'd go down like in a slow motion with his arm out, and it'd be that picture of the Russian killing Apollo. It was the same thing, but it was Creed's version.
Exactly. Institutional placement. They actually showed some clips from the Rocky Apollo fight. It was all of that. all of that rolled into one, and all of a sudden, I think at like the 8 count, he's just like a man possessed, just wakes up, jumps to his feet, and Tony Bellew, who's standing on the corner thinking it's over, you know, he's ready to go.
The way that he woke up is like when the doctor gives you that adrenaline shot in the heart,
Yes.
you know, it was
Very
like
good.
he had that gasp of air, like if you
was
just came
awesome.
out the pool. It was, I'm telling you, this just thing. It was just so much attention to the details in
Very.
this movie. Credit to this director, such a young guy, such an urban guy, and man, he's
It
up there
resonated.
with the
It
big,
resonated.
big
It did.
wigs, man. He's up there with the big wigs right now.
You know, and the thing about it in that 12th round where he scores the knockdown, Johnson does, Adonis Creed scores the knockdown over Bellew. It's almost over. Bellew just gets up. You know, Max Kellerman says something like, if there's 10 seconds left in this fight, Creed stops him. And, you know, like Ness said, it is a split decision, I believe, and Creed ends up losing it. But my final thoughts about it is, you know, the facet of the movie itself. It is a boxing movie, but it's not just a boxing movie. This is a movie. Okay, this is just a great story, a great screenplay. It took on a life of its own, and Ness said earlier, you know, you can refer to it as Rocky 7 or you can refer to it as Creed 1. I'm going to refer to it as Creed 1. They created dynamics and dialogue between characters that are everlasting. These are moments that can live on if they make a sequel. They separated themselves from the Rocky franchise. And yes, that universe exists and it makes you care about certain aspects a little bit more. If this was its own film and none of the other Rockies happened, you don't really know too much about Rocky and Adrian. You know, it doesn't ring home with you. You won't understand why Rocky refuses to get chemotherapy. Like all of those things, you know, come into play. This is a movie that stood on its own. The director did an incredible job at directing. The screenplay was really great, and I appreciate more than anything as a boxing fan all of the research that they did. I was a little bit upset that they didn't use any Philly shell. You know, Adonis is this slick fighter, and he never did the Mayweather shoulder roll. You know, he never really took on some of those up-to-date current dynamics that we see, even though the Philly shell is not really current per se, but still, you know, but he had those moves down, like Ness said. He's a very slick fighter, very fast hands. You know, they did that. They went and they got the research and they got the little details that made this film what it was. This is, in my opinion, the best boxing film since The Fighter. It is definitely the best boxing film of the year. A lot better than Southpaw. No disrespect to that, because I love the cameos in Southpaw as well. It was cool to see Jimmy Lennon Jr. do an HBO fight. But at the end of the day, Creed stands on its own. It was the best. Ness, any final words or final thoughts in terms of that?
No, I totally agree. It's a standalone film. I'm content calling it Creed, and then, you know, get a Creed Part 1 or Part 2, however they want to go from there. But I am invested in these characters. They made me invested in these characters. I feel bad though that Rocky might die and Bianca may be deaf in Part 2, but I'm invested. I think they did a phenomenal job casting. And also, it's funny that you bring up, you know, the Rocky originals, because a lot of these actors didn't even see it till they were a lot older. Obviously, with this movie, Rocky Balboa, the first one coming out in 1976, you know, Michael B. Jordan had to go back and do research on all those Rockies. But yeah, my final thoughts is definitely go watch this movie. Support it if you're a boxing fan. Support it. This is a good movie to take your son. I definitely took my son because it's so much more than just boxing. It's really about two people that need something from one another for different reasons. One needed a father in Michael B. Jordan, and the other needed someone to love in Sylvester Stallone, because
Very well
everyone
said.
around him continued to die or had moved on. So you know, it was a very good movie, a heartfelt movie. It hit all, it crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. I mean, are you gonna run across a couple of reviews that tells you that this movie wasn't 10 out of 10 stars? Absolutely, absolutely. There were little things, you know. I'm pretty sure some losers gonna could find that, but you know, it was a great movie, and I recommend you guys go see it. This has been our, you know, Creed movie review. Wow, super long. I don't know. We might have to do another one tomorrow with like 6 minutes for the regular moviegoers, and this one just for our TBV listeners. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, man, because this is us. Mario, any final? That's it. You're done.
Yeah, man. I just like you said, watch the movie, and we appreciate you guys staying up with us. Those that watch live, and yeah, maybe we should do another little one for non-boxing heads. But yeah, thanks for staying up, and looking forward to the show Thursday.
Later, guys.
Peace.
Thank you for